Hey, what's up, studs? Ryan here, or MandRproductions, and the audio in this video might sound a little bit weird because I'm on the road again, but I think that's going to be okay. I use this camera, same microphone for my review videos. So what happened was, the other night I was going down a rabbit hole, and I'm not even close to being done with going down it. I could have more videos on stuff like this, but I was on Eurobricks looking at some of the oldest posts in the LEGO Star Wars forum, and I happened upon a post from August 2nd, 2005, titled Poll for a $99 UCS set. And if you guys recall back to my video when they did the gunship vote, originally we only thought there was only one other fan vote that LEGO had done, and that was in 2008 for the Toys R Us, Fans Choice, whatever, with Palpatine's Arrest of Slave One and Mon Calamari set. But it was later discovered by myself that there was another vote in 2006 that included an AT-AT, a medical droid, a vulture droid, and R2-D2 as possible UCS sets. And now I have discovered another fan vote from 2005. It actually blew my mind when I found this. I could not believe I found this. And so as we look through the forum post here, you see they're just kind of talking about what the vote was about. So that was kind of interesting. But that being said, if you try to open any of the tabs here, you'll notice that this old site, legofan.org, is defunct, and that we're not going to be able to access any of it with what we have here. So we're actually going to use a tool called the Wayback Machine to help us discover what these web pages said during the time of this particular vote. And so using the Wayback Machine, we have the web page from the time, and at the time you would have to register like you would on LEGO Ideas now to vote for this, but a couple months later, on October 25th, there's a snapshot that shows the actual results. But first, let me tell you what the options were for this vote. It said, if the LEGO Group were to produce a new LEGO Star Wars Ultimate Collector Series UCS set at $99.99, which of the following set ideas would you find the most appealing? The AT-ST, the Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, in Episode 3, Anakin's Jedi Starfighter, very oddly worded here, but in Episode 2, Boba Fett Slave One, and a B-Wing Starfighter. Obviously, as I read that list, you may recognize quite a few of those from the actual sets that have been released in recent years, but it is very interesting to see this back in 2005, them talking about making a $100 UCS set. Now they're like $200 at least. They don't make those cheap ones anymore, which is kind of a shame. I wish there definitely are models like an A-Wing that would lend themselves to a $100 size UCS set. But the least voted for set on this entire list was Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, receiving only 7.64% of the 641 votes. And you see 641 votes at the time. They did release the voting numbers. We're going to get into that a little bit later in reference to the latest vote that they didn't release the numbers for. But 641 votes total back in 2005. That's pretty insane. The internet has changed a lot since 2005. I would wager they got tens of thousands of votes on this latest poll, but only 7% to the Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. And funny enough, that set actually got released the next year anyway. Even though it got the least amount of votes on this poll, it wasn't particularly indicative of what they ended up doing anyway, which is, I just find that very interesting. So that's kind of neat to see. I really personally enjoyed that set. So I don't dislike that choice, but that was a very nice Darth Vader's TIE Fighter from 2006. It was actually the first TIE Fighter that LEGO ever went gray on. They got rid of the blue, even though they had previously done a blue UCS TIE Interceptor. They went gray with this Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. It looked beautiful. It still holds up to today, thankfully, because they used gray. If they had used blue on that model, it would look awful by today's standards. Anyway, the second least voted for set was the Episode 3 Anakin's Jedi Starfighter. And this is in 2005 at the height of Episode 3. Now, to be fair, things have changed a lot since 2005. It's been 15 years now, so I would say the voting for this would go very differently nowadays. Not that I think Anakin's Jedi Starfighter might win, but only garnering 9.52% of that 641 votes is kind of interesting to see. Not that I think that would make a good UCS set, to be honest. That's not one that I would have voted for on this list. I'm pretty sure I would have been in the Darth Vader's TIE Fighter or AT-ST camp. Next up, voting-wise, with 19.03% of the vote, the B-Wing Starfighter, which is another interesting one to look at because they were thinking about making this a $100 set, and the set ended up costing $200 when it was eventually released in 2012, and I can't imagine that set at $100. Like, how small would that have been? I mean, the B-Wing didn't do so hot, apparently, anyway, and I actually got it for $100 on May the 4th, to be fair. It is pretty funny that this vote was for a $100 set, and the B-Wing ended up being $200, but I got it for $100 anyway, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, the B-Wing being a more expensive set, allowing them to do a lot more with that set than they could have otherwise. I just can't imagine what that set would have looked like in 2006 if it had won this vote and Lego would have made it. Like, that would have been pretty rough, I think. So thankfully they held off for about 6 more years, and seeing that thing in 2012 looked so much better than it probably could have in this time. And then next up on the vote with 21.22% of the vote is the Episode 2 Boba Fett Slave 1. So I think they were thinking of making a UCS Jango Fett Slave 1 and not, it's very, like I said, very oddly worded saying Episode 2 Boba Fett. So I think they mean Jango Fett Slave 1, not the Boba Fett Slave 1, and that set might have gotten more votes than it probably would have if it was worded correctly or in a less confusing way. But still, if it was regular Jango Fett Slave 1, I probably wouldn't have voted for it at the time, to be fair. That set, you know, at the time it had only been like 3 years since Jango Fett Slave 1 came out, so it was okay. But now that might be a little bit different. I wouldn't mind seeing that in a UCS form, just like the Boba Fett Slave 1 that we ended up getting in 2015. So this set actually took a long time. And actually, there's a picture maybe of a prototype of this set sitting in LEGO headquarters. So I'll pop that on screen and you can see it's pretty rough compared to what they ended up coming out with in the actual LEGO set. But it's very interesting to see a lot of this now and think about what LEGO may have been thinking at the time. So I find that very interesting, what that model could have looked like at $100. Probably would have been rough. Pretty funny though. They wanted to make a UCS set on $100 and now like the playset costs $120. That's just insane. Anyway, the most votes that any set on this survey got was the AT-ST with 35.57% of the votes. And I'll be honest, this is probably what I would have voted for, because this set, when it got like announced, because I wasn't following this in 2005, obviously, otherwise I would have known about this, and this would have been such a great surprise to me at 2 a.m. in the morning when I was just looking through this stuff. The AT-ST was probably the set I remember being the most hyped for like the first time, if that makes sense. Like the AT-ST, when that set got revealed, I actually built the faceplate of it out of my own parts. Like, that's how excited I was for that set. And I bought it pretty much right when it came out, I think. Like, I got that pretty soon after it came out. And funny enough, also, this set was supposed to be a $100 UCS set. LEGO released that AT-ST for $80, which, like, props to LEGO for, like, actually dropping a price on a thing. That would not happen today. So that's another really neat facet of this poll. There's just so much to draw out of this. But that AT-ST is one of my favorite UCS sets for sure. Like, I really loved that set. And it actually still holds up to today, obviously. And it was on, like, the cover of the LEGO catalog at the time. I love that LEGO catalog cover on Endor with some of the UCS AT-STs there. So that is a beautiful UCS set. It's, I think, the second cheapest UCS set ever, second to the Naboo Starfighter from 2002, which I recently found out is an Episode 2 set, not an Episode 1 set. My mind was blown on that technicality. But yeah, that was apparently the very first LEGO Star Wars fan vote. At least that's what I think now. I thought the other one that I thought was the first one for the AT-ST motorized set was the first one. No, this was the first one. Unless there was another first one that I just didn't catch wind of yet. But as far back as the internet goes that I've been able to find, this is the first one. So I thought this would be a really cool thing to bring you guys attention, make you guys learn something new today. I thought that was pretty neat. But I do have something else I want to talk about in this video, and that's that LEGO has not released the voting numbers for the latest UCS poll, and I find that to be very discouraging. I think that LEGO should be a company that, in this way, and something that's pretty trivial, they should just be transparent about it. They're pretty transparent about a lot of stuff anyway. Like, why not just go ahead and tell us how many votes each set got? You were doing it back in 2005. What changed? I have one main conspiracy as to why LEGO wouldn't release how many votes each set got. And, you know, at first I thought the gunship would win, right? I thought the gunship would win by, you know, a marginal amount. Maybe the gunship would get 50%. Maybe the Nebulon B would get like 40%. And the TIE Bomber would pick up 10%, rounding us out to 100% of the votes. But I firmly believe now the reason LEGO is not releasing the number of votes on the latest UCS poll is because the gunship won by like an unfathomable amount that nobody could have seen coming. Like, the gunship may have gotten like 80% of the votes or just something incredibly wild like that. So that's where I'm at. I think the gunship destroyed, and I also think there was just an insane amount of votes, like 30,000 votes on the poll. And so LEGO just doesn't want to release that information for whatever reason, and I don't appreciate that. I really don't. Like, you said you were going to release the voting numbers and you didn't release the voting numbers. Like, that's just not cool, man. That's just not cool. I don't know how to put it, bro. Like, what are we hiding here? The only thing I can fathom them hiding is a landslide victory. There's no other reason to hide the numbers other than one set got such a massive amount of votes that they don't want to make everyone else feel bad or something like that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the reasoning. They just want to keep it a secret because they want to keep it a secret. That's really lame to me. Obviously, tens of thousands of people voted and would like to know the exact results of the poll. But anyway, I thought it would also be a little bit of fun to take a look through the Eurobricks poll from the time and see if there were any very interesting takes. Obviously, 2005 was a very different time for LEGO Star Wars, so perhaps some people had some very different opinions on LEGO Star Wars in 2005. A user named Beagle says the AT-ST is, in his opinion, the most iconic Star Wars vehicle ever. So that's kind of an interesting opinion. I would say the Millennium Falcon, but that's a hot take there. He also said the AT-ST has been neglected of redesigns, and I guess he obviously didn't know what was coming in 2018. So from what I can find on Eurobricks, there aren't too many hot takes. Let's take a look at the legofan.org forums from the time about the survey and see what they might have had to say. Also, shout out to Kim Thompson. Kim Thompson is the old Lego community manager guy, and he's on here in 2005, so that's insane to see him as a normal fan on the forums. So all this legofan.org chatter is post the reveal of the Victor. I find this take pretty interesting because in 2005, Darth Vader's TIE Fighter had been on shelves in 1999, 2002, and 2005. It had been re-released 3 times as the same exact model with very slight changes in that blue color. And so someone in here said that they would pass on that. And I don't think they knew how good that model was going to look because it looks leaps and bounds better than what those early playset versions looked like. So that's kind of interesting to see someone talking about. I selected AT-ST as long as it comes with an AT-ST driver. Oh, well, you were disappointed a little bit. I guess the 2007 playset would have quenched that though. A UCS Republic gunship would be a huge success, but would have to be a higher price point, like $140 to $150. Timothy Bennett, bro. I like to think this man was around still on the internet to vote for the gunship this year. I really hope so. That would be pretty cool for that dude that obviously wanted one back in 2005. That's insane, dude. Someone else says $100 is too low, but we need a Millennium Falcon in UCS. Yes, we do, or we did. Little did he know it would cost him $500 and $800 respectively. If you have anything to say, of course, leave it down in the comments section below. LEGO, release the numbers for the UCS poll. Do it, just do it. Why not? What are we doing? What are we hiding? Other than a massive gunship gang victory. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.